This is the fifth and final video in this mini course in optimal breathing for stress management, emotional well-being and optimal performance. There's nothing new to say at this point about breathing, but I just want to give you a very quick review of the main ideas we've covered, and then I'll say something about what you can do if you're still struggling. I don't want to pretend that the art of breathing well is something that can be mastered with just a few minutes instruction and a few minutes to practice, and particularly so if your issues around stress are deep-rooted. So if you feel like you haven't really got it yet, or if your breath still feels uncomfortable and problematic, don't worry, I'll have some pointers for further help in a few minutes. But first, a brief review. Breathing matters to stress because the stress response is expressed in the body. It changes how we breathe. Typically, the breath speeds up and moves higher in the chest, and these breathing changes in turn affect brain performance. And we've highlighted two pathways. One is overbreathing, which somewhat paradoxically reduces oxygen delivery to the brain. Extreme hyperventilation is associated with panic, but mild overbreathing is common and unrecognized. The second pathway is that stressed breathing tends to block the parasympathetic nervous system, which carries the relaxation response and also activates the social brain and the executive brain. So a reasonable strategy for effective stress management and optimal performance is to set up the biological conditions that make resourceful states of mind easier to access. That's what optimal breathing does. It creates the foundation for optimal brain performance. The goal is resilience, or the ability to quickly and easily recover from stress. We looked at three components of healthy breathing practice: abdominal or diaphragmatic breathing, letting the air all the way out. This helps to limit overbreathing. But equally, the breath needs to be gentle, with slow, subtle movements of the breathing muscles. And slow, regular breathing in around 6 breaths per minute will help you to generate some heart coherence and so activate and exercise the parasympathetic nervous system. You need to approach breathing with the right mindset, otherwise you risk getting caught up in what I've been calling the quicksand trap and making things worse, not better. This happens when the thinking, problem-solving mind gets in the way of the body intelligence, which already knows how to breathe well, or at least knows how to learn. So good breathing comes not from willpower and problem-solving, but from trust in the body, receptivity to sensory experience, which is your body's feedback, and actually imagination, in the sense that imagining how it will feel to let all your muscles go loose so that the breath can calmly and gently sink all the way out in a smooth, easy and pleasurable exhalation. Imagining that experience is much more likely to invoke it than using force of will, so to speak. And I talked about the mindfulness mindset, which is paying open, receptive attention without over-controlling, without judging, and without either grasping after pleasurable experience or struggling against unpleasant experience. Then we looked at heart coherence, which is this state of efficient mental and physical functioning, where the heart speeds up and slows down in sync with the breath, optimally with a slow, regular breath around 6 breaths per minute. And we used the breath pacing tool to facilitate that, not forgetting it's just one element of an integrated breathing practice. Okay, so what if all that makes sense and you've tried it out, but you can't seem to get anywhere with it? You don't seem to feel any better, or your breathing still feels uncomfortable and laboured. What could be standing in your way? Let's take a step back and think about what's fundamentally needed to learn any new skill. Well, first you need to have a clear goal. Not just an idea of it, but a sense of what it looks like and feels like. And then you need to be able to clearly perceive the results of what you've done and see how that differs from what you wanted in a way that tells you what you need to do differently. We call this feedback. So, for example, if you're learning to play tennis, the goal is to hit the ball over the net and into the court. If you swing and miss, or if you hit it into the net, it's obvious that you did it wrong. Your immediate sensory experience is the feedback that you need. Now, when it comes to breathing, things are less clear. The goal may be conceptually clear, but it's not necessarily obvious what good breathing feels like if you haven't consciously felt it before. And sensory feedback can likewise be less than ideal or less than clear. Take the idea of fully releasing your muscles on the out-breath. It's quite difficult to know when you've fully released as opposed to partially released. Muscle tension can be like the sound of the fridge in the kitchen. You think it's quiet until the fridge switches off, and then you realise there was this sound there all the time. This is something I see a lot with my clients when I use a biofeedback device to measure their muscle tension. Biofeedback is simply a tool for supporting learning. It works by measuring what's happening in the body in real time, and so clarifies or augments what you feel from your own senses. In my experience, biofeedback can be a powerful aid in learning to breathe well, and I want to explain how with reference to some of the things that we can measure. So for example, muscle tension is a useful biofeedback parameter because, as I say, you can detect whether you're fully releasing muscles, and also it can pick up the difference between chest breathing and abdominal breathing. More generally, it can detect the stress response because most people tend to tighten up when they feel stressed. Another device that I use with clients can quite accurately measure your degree of over-breathing. It's called a capnometer, and it measures the carbon dioxide content of the air that you breathe out. Now, somewhat surprisingly, carbon dioxide is more significant than oxygen in the brain's regulation of breathing, and it's actually depleted levels of carbon dioxide dissolved in the blood that lead to the reduced oxygen delivery to brain cells. Overbreathing is another one of those things that if it becomes habitual, it's very difficult to know when you're doing it. The capnometer is my favourite biofeedback device because it can make such a difference to the efficacy of your breathing training. It's also really good for showing up the nature of the quicksand trap, or the tendency to make things worse when you try too hard or try in the wrong sort of way. A third biofeedback parameter that's really useful in breathing training and stress management generally is HRV, or heart coherence biofeedback. You're more likely to have heard of it because of its growing popularity thanks to the availability of low-cost devices such as the HeartMath M-Wave device. This is the screenshot that I showed in an earlier video. It's taken from biofeedback software, and it shows good coherence with the heart rate speeding up and slowing down in sync with breathing. Notice I'm measuring the breath as well as heart rate. That's something that you don't get with the more common devices such as the HeartMath. Again, the benefit is that you can see how effectively you're creating coherence. And HRV biofeedback is also good for showing how stressed thinking can influence the body by blocking coherence, for example. So I hope that I've given you an idea of how biofeedback can really add value to your efforts to learn how to manage stress and access optimal brain performance. You can learn more about biofeedback from my website, and if you signed up for this course on my website, then I'll be emailing you a few short articles in the coming weeks. Do feel free to contact me personally if you have any questions. I look forward to keeping in touch.